They humiliated the poor girl until a rich man changed the room. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to the main character. The first thing she notices is the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the sharp kind, the kind that cuts through a room when everyone is suddenly looking at you. Emily Carter stands just inside the entrance of the restaurant, her fingers tightening around the strap of her worn leather bag. The place smells like expensive perfume and grilled steak, the kind of restaurant where menus do not list prices and the lights are kept low so nobody notices how much they are spending. She already feels out of place. Her coat is thin, her shoes are scuffed at the toes. She had checked her reflection in the subway window earlier and told herself to stand tall anyway. Tonight matters. Tonight is her chance to save her job, or at least that is what she believed when she walked in. A hostess in a black dress looks her up and down, eyes lingering just a second too long. "Can I help you?" the woman asks, her smile polite but cold. "I am here to meet someone," Emily says softly. "They said to come to the private dining area." The hostess raises an eyebrow. "Do you have a reservation name?" Emily hesitates. She was only told to come. No name, no details. Just an address and a time. Her supervisor had said it was important. Very important. "I was invited," Emily repeats, her voice quieter now. The hostess exhales, already annoyed. "This area is reserved for our premium guests. If you are looking for the bar, it is on the other side." A few people nearby glance over. A man in a tailored suit smirks. A woman at a nearby table whispers something and laughs behind her wine glass. Emily feels her face burn. "I am not looking for the bar," she says, trying to keep her voice steady. "I was told to come here." The hostess folds her arms. "Miss, if you do not have a reservation, you cannot stand here. You are blocking the entrance." That is when it happens. A voice from behind the hostess cuts in, loud enough for the room to hear. "Is there a problem?" The speaker is a middle-aged man in an expensive jacket, clearly annoyed to be interrupted. He looks at Emily like she is a stain on the floor. "She says she belongs in the private room," the hostess replies. "But she cannot provide a name." The man chuckles. "That room is for investors and executives, not walk-ins." A ripple of laughter follows. Quiet, controlled. Emily swallows hard. She wants to explain. She wants to disappear. She wants to ask why kindness always seems to cost more than she can afford. "I can wait outside," she says finally. She turns to leave, and that is when she notices him. A man standing near the wall, dressed simply in dark jeans and a plain jacket. No watch. No visible symbols of wealth. He has been silent this entire time, watching. His face is calm, unreadable, but his eyes are sharp, focused. He looks at Emily, not with judgment, not with amusement, but with something else. Attention. She does not know it yet. But his name is Daniel Wright, and in this room full of people who believe money decides worth, he is the richest man among them. For now, he says nothing. He just watches as Emily walks toward the door, shoulders tight, dignity held together by sheer will, and what happens next will change everything. Emily does not stop walking until the cold air outside hits her face. The city noise rushes back in all at once. Car horns, footsteps, a bus hissing as it pulls away from the curb. It feels louder than the laughter inside the restaurant, even though that laughter never followed her out the door. She exhales slowly, like she has been holding her breath for hours. It is not the first time this has happened. That thought settles heavier than the embarrassment itself. Emily walks 2 blocks before she slows down, her shoes tapping against cracked pavement. She reaches the subway entrance and pauses at the top of the stairs, fingers brushing the worn edge of her coat sleeve. For a moment, she just stands there, staring down into the dim station lights. She thinks about turning around, not to go back inside the restaurant. Never that. But to go back to the version of herself who still believed that if you worked hard enough, people would eventually listen. That version feels far away. Emily takes the subway home, standing the entire ride because all the seats are taken. She watches her reflection in the dark window as the train rattles forward. Tired eyes, a crease between her brows that never used to be there. She looks older than she should. When she steps off at her stop, the neighborhood is quiet. Not wealthy, not dangerous. Just tired, like everyone else who lives here. She climbs the narrow stairs to her apartment, unlocks the door, and steps inside. The place is small. One bedroom. A couch that doubles as a bed for guests she never has. A tiny kitchen where the light flickers if she turns on the microwave and the kettle at the same time. Emily drops her bag on the chair and leans her forehead against the door for a second. Her phone buzzes. She straightens immediately, heart skipping. For a brief, foolish moment, she thinks it might be an apology, or an explanation, or someone realizing they made a mistake. It is a message from her supervisor. "Did you make it to the restaurant?" It reads. Emily closes her eyes. She types back slowly, choosing her words carefully. "Yes, I went. They said there was no reservation." The reply comes almost instantly. "That is strange. They told us they would handle everything. We will talk tomorrow." Tomorrow. That word feels like a weight. Emily changes out of her coat and sits at the small table by the window. She pulls out a notebook, the pages worn and dog-eared. It is where she keeps numbers. Rent, utilities, groceries. The kind of math that never seems to add up no matter how carefully she writes it. She circles the rent amount and stares at it. She is one missed paycheck away from losing this apartment. One unexpected expense away from starting over with nothing. Again, there is a knock on the door. Emily freezes. No one ever knocks this late. She stands slowly and opens it just enough to peek outside. Her neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, stands in the hallway holding a small container. "I made too much soup," the woman says gently. "You look tired, Mija." Emily hesitates, pride rising automatically. Then it fades, replaced by exhaustion. "Thank you," she says. Mrs. Alvarez presses the container into her hands. "Eat. Tomorrow will be better." Emily nods, even though she does not believe it. Later, as she eats the soup at her table, she thinks about the man in the restaurant. The one who did not laugh. The one who did not look away. She remembers his eyes, calm, focused, like he was measuring something invisible. She shakes her head, dismissing the thought. People notice things all the time. It does not mean they care. Across the city, in a quiet car moving through traffic, Daniel Wright sits in the back seat, hands folded, staring out the window. He has been to 100 restaurants like that one. He has watched people posture and perform and pretend for years. None of it surprises him anymore. What surprised him tonight was her silence, the way she did not beg, did not argue, did not shrink. She walked away with her dignity intact. Daniel exhales slowly. Tomorrow, he decides, he is going to find out who Emily Carter really is, and why the world keeps testing her kindness. Morning comes too early. Emily wakes before her alarm, staring at the cracked ceiling above her bed as pale light slips through the blinds. Her body feels heavy, like sleep never fully arrived. For a few seconds, she forgets about the restaurant. Then the memory settles back in, sharp and unwelcome. She sits up anyway. There is work to do. There is always work to do. Emily dresses quietly, pulling on her coat and checking her wallet out of habit. Inside is a single $10 bill. The last one. She considers leaving it behind, then slides it back into place. You never know, she tells herself. The city has a way of demanding payment when you least expect it. Outside, the air is cold and damp. The sky is gray, undecided. Emily walks to the corner cafe where she stops most mornings. Not because she can afford it, but because standing inside for 5 minutes with a warm cup makes the day feel manageable. She orders the cheapest coffee on the menu and waits near the counter. That is when she hears the voice behind her. "Excuse me." It is quiet, almost apologetic. Emily turns. A man stands a few feet away, his jacket thin, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He looks tired. Not dramatic, tired. Real tired. The kind that settles into your bones. His hair is slightly unkempt, his eyes rimmed with red. "I hate to ask," he says, glancing at the floor. "But do you know if this place takes cash only? My card is not working, and I just need something warm." Emily hesitates. She thinks about her rent. She thinks about her supervisor saying tomorrow. She thinks about how close she is to running out of chances. Then she remembers the silence in the restaurant. The way it felt to be dismissed without being heard. She reaches into her wallet and pulls out the $10 bill. "Use this," she says, holding it out. "Get yourself a coffee. And maybe something to eat." The man looks at the bill like it might disappear. "I cannot take that," he says quickly. "I will pay you back." Emily shakes her head. "You do not have to. Just stay warm." Their fingers brush for a second as he takes the money. His hand is cold. "Thank you," he says, his voice breaking just enough to give him away. "You have no idea how much this means." Emily offers a small smile. "I think I do." He steps aside to order, and she moves to the pickup counter, wrapping her hands around her cup when it is ready. She does not look back. Across the cafe, seated near the window, Daniel Wright watches everything. He had come in for coffee like any other morning. No entourage. No assistant. Just a jacket, a pair of jeans, and a quiet corner where nobody would bother him. He had noticed Emily the moment she walked in. Not because she stood out, but because she did not. She moved carefully, like someone used to navigating spaces that did not quite welcome her. And then he saw the exchange. No hesitation, no performance. Just a simple decision made without witnesses. Daniel does not intervene. He does not introduce himself. He simply observes as Emily finishes her coffee and leaves. Already late for wherever she is going next, the man with the coffee sits down heavily at a table, cradling the cup like a lifeline. Daniel exhales slowly. This is the part most people fail. Later that afternoon, Emily stops by the community center on her way home. She volunteers there twice a week, helping sort donations and serve meals when she can. Nobody pays her. Nobody asks why she keeps coming back. Inside, the air smells like bread and disinfectant. A few familiar faces nod at her as she ties on an apron. "Rough day?" one of the volunteers asks. Emily shrugs. "Something like that." She serves bowls, listens more than she speaks, and hands a second helping to an older woman who did not ask but clearly needs it. Kindness, Emily has learned, is rarely loud. That evening, as she leaves the center, she checks her phone. There is a new message. "Unknown number," the screen reads. "Emily Carter." The message begins. "This is Daniel. We met briefly yesterday. I would like to talk, if you are willing." She stops walking. Her heart beats faster, not from excitement, but from confusion. She does not know yet who Daniel Wright is. But somewhere deep down, she senses that the test has already begun. Emily rereads the message 3 times before replying. She stands on the sidewalk outside the community center, the evening air cool against her face. Traffic rolling past like nothing in her life is uncertain. Her first instinct is to ignore it. Unknown numbers usually bring trouble, not solutions. But he used her name. She types slowly. "Hello." "Yes, I remember. What did you want to talk about?" The reply comes a minute later. "Nothing urgent. Just coffee. If you are comfortable with that." Coffee feels harmless, manageable. Emily hesitates, then sends back a short yes. They meet the next afternoon at a small cafe far from the restaurant district. The kind of place with mismatched chairs and handwritten prices on the wall. No reservations. No private rooms. Daniel is already there when she arrives, seated at a corner table with a plain black coffee. He stands when he sees her, polite but not overbearing. "Thank you for coming," he says. Emily nods and sits across from him, setting her bag at her feet. Up close, he looks ordinary. No designer suit. No expensive watch. Just a man in his late 30s with tired eyes and a calm presence. I hope this is not awkward, he adds. I did not mean to intrude. Präsentandenting 2020 Munder. It is fine, Emily says. I was surprised, that is all. They order. The silence that follows is not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. I wanted to apologize, Daniel says finally, for yesterday, not for what happened, but for not saying anything. Emily studies his face. You do not owe me an apology. Maybe not, he says. But I still wanted to say it. She considers that. Most people rush to explain themselves. Daniel does not. You handled it well, he continues. Better than most people would have. Emily lets out a quiet laugh. I have had practice. That is all she offers. No story. No complaint. They talk about small things after that. The neighborhood, the weather, the coffee. Daniel asks what she does, and she tells him she works for a logistics company and volunteers when she can. He tells her he consults. He does not say for whom. He listens more than he speaks. At one point, Emily excuses herself to use the restroom. As she passes the counter, she notices the barista struggling with a jammed register drawer. A line forms. People sigh. Without thinking, Emily steps forward. Sometimes it sticks, she says gently. Try lifting it a little before you pull. Alderberkry. The drawer opens. Thank you, the barista says, relieved. Emily smiles and heads back to the table. Daniel watches this too. When the check comes, Emily reaches for her wallet automatically. Daniel shakes his head. Please, he says. Let me. She hesitates, then nods. Thank you. Outside, they linger for a moment. I enjoyed this, Daniel says. If you ever want to talk again. Emily meets his eyes. I did. They part without promises. That night, Daniel sits alone in his apartment, city lights stretching below his windows. He thinks about the cafe, the register, the way Emily helped without needing credit. Most people perform kindness when it is visible. Emily does it when no one is watching. The next day, Emily receives an email at work, a request for her to assist with a small project. Temporary. Off the books. Her supervisor frames it as an opportunity. She does not know the name behind the request. Daniel does. He tells himself it is still observation, still testing, still distance. But for the first time in a long while, the test is no longer about others. It is about him. The request comes late in the afternoon. Emily is halfway through answering emails when her supervisor appears at her desk. Posture suddenly formal, voice carefully neutral. There is a short-term assignment, he says. Client-facing, sensitive. They specifically asked for you. 19. 5 remark. 1919. Emily blinks. Me? He nods. You have a reputation for being reliable. And discreet. Reliable, discreet. Words people use when they want something handled quietly. What does it involve? She asks. Attending a meeting tomorrow evening, he replies. Observing, taking notes. No speaking unless spoken to. Rana, stand of the Nender's night to 19 Mar. Emily hesitates. Where? He slides a printed address onto her desk. Her stomach tightens. It is the same building as the restaurant. The same neighborhood. Different floor. I am not sure I am the right fit, Emily says carefully. Her supervisor sighs. I would not ask if it was optional. That night, Emily does not sleep well. The next evening, she arrives early, dressed as simply and professionally as she can manage. The lobby is all glass and marble, security desks glowing softly under recessed lights. Everyone around her seems to know exactly where they are going. She checks in and is directed upstairs. The room she enters is not a restaurant this time. It is a private conference space. Long table, bottled water, name placards placed with precision. Conversations pause as she steps inside. She feels it again, that familiar tightening in her chest. Emily takes a seat near the wall, opens her notebook, and lowers her gaze. She listens as people discuss numbers far larger than anything in her world. Investments, acquisitions, risks discussed like abstract ideas instead of lives. A man across the table complains about inefficiency. Another jokes about cutting costs by trimming unnecessary staff. Emily writes everything down. Then, the door opens. Daniel walks in, not in jeans this time, not in a plain jacket. He wears a tailored suit that fits him effortlessly, dark and understated. No flash, no excess, just quiet authority. The room shifts immediately. Chairs straighten. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Someone stands. "Good evening, Daniel." Emily freezes. She looks up slowly. Daniel Wright takes his seat at the head of the table without acknowledging the tension he brings with him. He nods once, and the meeting resumes around him like a tide adjusting to a new current. Emily keeps her head down, heart pounding. Daniel does not look at her. Not yet. As the discussion continues, Emily notices the pattern. Every idea is filtered through him. Every decision waits for his response. When he speaks, it is calm, deliberate, final. This is not a consultant. This is control. Halfway through the meeting, someone raises a concern about public image, about optics, about how certain incidents are unfortunate but unavoidable. Daniel poses. "Which incidents?" he asks. The man hesitates. "There was a situation last night, a misunderstanding at one of our venues." Emily's pen stills. Daniel leans back slightly. "And how was it handled?" "Well," the man says, uncomfortable. "Staff followed protocol." Daniel nods once. "Protocol exists to serve people, not humiliate them." Silence. Emily feels her breath catch. Daniel's voice remains even. "If your protocol creates harm, then your protocol is broken." No one laughs. No one argues. The meeting continues, but something has shifted. When it ends, people file out quickly, speaking in low voices. Emily remains seated, unsure if she should move. Daniel finally looks at her. Their eyes meet. There is no surprise on his face, only recognition. "Emily," he says gently, as if they are still in the cafe. She stands instinctively. "I did not know," she says. "If I had known, I would not have." "I know," he interrupts. "That is why you are here." He gestures toward the chair across from him. "Sit." She does. "For the record," Daniel continues, "nothing about our meeting so far has been dishonest. Incomplete, maybe, but not false." "Are?" Emily swallows. "Why?" Daniel considers her for a moment. "Because when people do not think power is in the room, they reveal who they are." She thinks of the restaurant, the cafe, the $10 bill. "And you?" she asks quietly. "What were you revealing?" Daniel exhales. "That is what I am still figuring out." Outside, the city hums on, unaware that the test has entered its final phase. The days that follow move differently. Emily notices it immediately. People at work are more attentive. Emails are answered faster. Meetings she used to sit through quietly now pause when she speaks. Nobody explains why. They simply adjust. She does not feel relieved. She feels exposed. Daniel does not contact her again after the meeting. No messages. No invitations. No reassurance. The silence stretches, heavy with unanswered questions. Emily replays every interaction in her head, wondering if she said too much or not enough. Then the invitation arrives. A formal email, forwarded by her supervisor, stamped with urgency. Client Appreciation Gala. Attendance required. Emily reads the location and feels her stomach drop. It is the same venue as the restaurant, the same room, the same polished floors where laughter once followed her to the door. On the night of the gala, Emily stands in front of her mirror, longer than usual. She wears a simple black dress borrowed from a coworker, hemmed by hand the night before. Nothing flashy, nothing apologetic. She reminds herself why she is here. Work, notes, observation, not redemption. When she arrives, the room is already full. Crystal glasses catch the light. Music hums softly beneath layers of conversation. People move with confidence, greeting one another by name. Emily stays near the edge, notebook tucked under her arm. She sees them again. The hostess. the man in the expensive jacket, a few others who were there that night. Their eyes slide past her, then back again. Recognition flickers. She hears it before she feels it. Is she staff? Someone murmurs. No, I think she is with the company. Well, she does not look like she belongs here. Emily breathes in slowly. She does not respond. She watches as servers weave through the crowd, balancing trays. One stumbles slightly near a table of executives. A glass tips. Wine spills. A sharp voice cuts through the music. Be careful. Do you have any idea how much that suit costs? The server freezes, face flushing. Apologies tumble out. Emily steps forward without thinking. She grabs a napkin from a nearby table and presses it gently into the server's shaking hands. It is okay, she says quietly. It will come out. The executive looks at her, annoyed. Excuse me, who are you? Emily meets his gaze. Someone who understands accidents. A few people turn to watch. The server whispers, thank you, and slips away. The executive scoffs. This is a gala, not a charity event. Emily feels the familiar heat rise in her chest. Before she can speak, another voice enters the space. Calm, controlled. That is enough. Daniel stands near the center of the room, dressed impeccably, presence unmistakable. Conversations fade. Heads turn. He walks forward, not toward Emily, but toward the executive. You are representing this company tonight, Daniel continues. If that is how you speak to people under pressure, then perhaps you should reconsider what you are representing. The executive stammers. I did not mean... Daniel raises a hand. Intent does not erase impact. Silence settles over the room. Daniel turns then, finally, toward Emily. Thank you, he says simply. Not loudly. Just enough. Eyes follow his gaze. Emily feels them all at once. The whispers change tone. That is her, too now. She is with him? Who is she? Daniel addresses the room. If you will excuse me, I have an announcement. The staff gathers near the stage. Guests drift closer. Emily stands frozen, heart racing. This company prides itself on values, Daniel says evenly. Not just in words, but in behavior. Tonight, I saw both. His eyes flick briefly to Emily again. And tomorrow, he adds, there will be changes. The music does not resume right away. Emily slips out to the terrace, needing air. Moments later, Daniel joins her. You did not have to do that, she says quietly. Yes, I did, he replies. She turns to face him. You are testing them, Daniel nods. I always do. And me? He considers the question carefully. No, he says, you already passed. Emily exhales, unsure whether to feel relieved or afraid. Inside, the room hums again. But something fundamental has shifted. The final test is no longer about observation. It is about consequence. The fallout begins the next morning. Emily knows something is wrong the moment she steps into the office. Conversations stop too quickly. People look up, then away. Her supervisor avoids eye contact as he passes her desk. At 9 sharp, an all-hands email goes out. Mandatory meeting. Conference room A. Emily takes a seat near the back, notebook in hand, heart steady but alert. Around her, executives murmur in low voices. The same ones who laughed at the restaurant. The same ones who looked through her at the gala. The door opens. Daniel walks in, calm as ever. He does not waste time. Yesterday made something very clear, he says, his voice carrying without effort. Some of you believe professionalism only applies upward. That is not leadership. That is fear. No one interrupts. I went undercover for a reason, Daniel continues. Not to play games, but to see what happens when power is absent. End quote. End 24. A ripple moves through the room. You saw a woman you thought had no influence, he says. And you showed me exactly who you are. Emily feels the weight of every eye turned toward her. Daniel raises a hand slightly. Do not look at her. Look at yourselves. He gestures to the screen behind him. Names appear. Departments. Notes. The hostess who dismissed a guest without listening, he says evenly. Terminated. Effective immediately. A sharp inhale cuts through the room. The executive who mocked staff publicly, Daniel continues. Removed from client-facing roles pending review. Silence tightens. And the manager who approved policies that reward compliance over humanity, he adds. You will submit your resignation today. The man turns pale. Daniel lets the words settle. This is not punishment, he says. It is correction. He looks directly at Emily now. Emily Carter, he says. She stands instinctively. From this point forward, Daniel continues, you will be joining my team as a project coordinator for the Carter Foundation. The room erupts into whispers. Emily blinks. I did not apply for... I know, Daniel says. I observed. He addresses the room again. Her role will focus on community partnerships and internal ethics review. Effective immediately. A pause. She will be compensated accordingly, he adds. With full benefits. One cell, one cell. One cell, one cell, one cell, one cell, one cell. Emily feels the floor tilt beneath her feet. After the meeting, people avoid her. Some look embarrassed. Others look angry. A few look apologetic but say nothing. Daniel finds her near the elevators. Are you all right? He asks. She nods slowly. I think so. This is a lot. He inclines his head. It is meant to be. They ride down in silence. Outside the building, Emily finally speaks. You changed my life in one meeting. Daniel stops walking. No, I corrected an imbalance. You earned everything else. She studies him. And the undercover part? His expression tightens slightly. That was my failure. Emily exhales. I do not know how to trust this. I am not asking you to, he replies. Not yet. She considers that. Later that evening, Emily returns to her apartment with a box of her belongings. Mrs. Alvarez meets her in the hallway. You look like something good happened, the woman says. Emily smiles, small but real. Something fair did. Argus? That night, Daniel sits alone in his office, city lights stretching endlessly beyond the glass. His assistant stands nearby, waiting. The changes are in motion, she says. Public response will follow. Daniel nods. Good. And Emily Carter? The assistant asks carefully. Daniel looks out at the city again. She reminds me, he says, why this matters. The reveal is complete. The consequences have begun. What remains now is the most difficult part of all. What happens when the test is no longer hidden? The change does not feel real at first. Emily expects the ground to disappear beneath her feet at any moment, like it always has when things seem too good to be true. But days pass, and nothing is taken away. Her new office is small. A desk by the window. A plant someone left without asking. No spotlight. No ceremony. Just work. And work, she understands. Her role begins quietly. Reviewing internal reports. Sitting in meetings where people now choose their words carefully. Visiting community partners who look surprised when she shows up without an entourage. She listens. She takes notes. She asks questions no one used to bother asking. Who does this policy affect the most? What happens when someone cannot comply? Who is not in this room right now? Some people bristle. Others soften. Daniel does not hover. He checks in once a week. Short conversations. Clear expectations. No favors. No exceptions. When they speak, it is always about the work. And that, more than anything, unsettles Emily. One afternoon, she finds herself standing outside the same restaurant again. This time, she is not alone. Daniel stands beside her, hands in his coat pockets, expression neutral. I wanted you to see it, he says. From this side. Emily nods. Inside, the staff moves differently. Slower. More. Careful. The hostess who greets them meets Emily's eyes first. Welcome, she says sincerely. They sit. Order. Eat. No one laughs. No one stares. Outside, Emily exhales. That was the point, was it not? Daniel looks at her. It was one of them. They walk a few steps in silence. Do you regret it? Emily asks. Regret what? Changing everything, she says. For me. Daniel stops. I did not do it for you. She raises an eyebrow. I did it because systems do not correct themselves, he continues. They wait for someone to notice. Right? Emily absorbs that. A week later, she receives her first full paycheck. She sits at her kitchen table, staring at the number, fingers trembling slightly. Rent paid, utilities covered, groceries without counting every item twice. She walks down the hall and knocks on Mrs. Alvarez's door. I brought dinner, Emily says, holding out a bag. The woman smiles. Something good really did happen. Emily nods. Yes, but it did not come from nowhere. That night, Daniel calls her. Not about work. I owe you something, he says. Emily hesitates. You do not owe me anything. I owe you honesty, he replies. They meet on the terrace of his building. The city stretches out below them, loud and distant all at once. I started undercover because I stopped trusting people, Daniel says. Power makes liars out of everyone, including me. Emily listens. When you gave that $10 away, he continues, I realized I had built a world where kindness was optional. That is on me. She exhales slowly. You still chose to test people. Yes, he admits. And I tested you without your consent. Emily meets his eyes. That is the part that hurts. I know, he says quietly. Silence settles between them. Not awkward, honest. I am not angry, Emily says finally. But I need you to understand something. He nods. I do not want to be chosen because I passed a test, she continues. Daniel holds her gaze. I do. I know though. Then do not hide, she says. Not from me. He takes that in. I will not, he promises. The wind moves softly across the terrace. Below them, the city continues, unchanged by revelations and justice. Emily does not know what comes next, but for the first time, she knows she is standing on ground that will not disappear beneath her feet. The redemption is not complete, but it is real, and that is enough. The city feels different when Emily walks through it now. Not quieter, not kinder, just clearer. Weeks have passed since the gala, since the meeting, since the moment her life tilted onto a new path. She still rides the subway, still carries her coffee carefully, still shops with a list, but the weight in her chest has shifted, replaced by something steadier. Choice. On a Friday evening, Emily finishes work late and steps outside the building. The sky streaked with orange and gray. Daniel is waiting across the street, hands in his pockets, leaning against a car that does not try to impress anyone. You look tired, he says. So do you, she replies. They walk together without a plan, down streets neither of them needs to conquer. Daniel tells her about the Foundation's next project. Emily tells him about a community center that needs better lighting and safer exits. They talk like equals, no tests, no reveals. At a quiet park, Daniel stops. I want to ask you something, he says. Emily turns to face him. Ask. I know what I want, he continues. But I do not want it if it costs you your peace. She waits. I want to build something with you, Daniel says. Not because you are kind, not because you passed anything, but because you challenge me to be better. Emily studies him, the city humming softly around them. I am not looking to be saved, she says. I know, Daniel replies. That is why I am asking. She exhales slowly. Then here is my answer. She steps closer, not into him, but beside him. Yes, she says. As long as we keep choosing honesty. Every day. Daniel nods once. Every day. They do not kiss. Not yet. They sit on a bench and watch the city move. The next morning, Emily returns to the community center. This time, she does not volunteer alone. Daniel shows up carrying boxes, sleeves rolled up, blending in without effort. No one recognizes him. No one needs to. Mrs. Alvarez spots them and smiles knowingly. Later, as they leave, Emily presses something into Daniel's hand. A folded $10 bill. The same one, she says. I kept it. Daniel looks at it, then at her. Not as a reminder of poverty, she adds. As a reminder of choice. He nods. Then we keep it. Months later, the foundation announces a new initiative. One Kindness Day. No speeches. No cameras. Just policy changes and quiet accountability. At the end of the year, Emily stands in a small gallery space, filled with photos from community projects. Daniel joins her, slipping his hand into hers naturally. "Do you regret walking into that restaurant?" he asks softly. Emily smiles. "No. It showed me who I was. And me," Daniel says, "who I needed to become." She leans her head against his shoulder. The world does not change overnight, but sometimes one room does. And sometimes that is enough. If this story moved you, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for more dramatic stories like this. And tell us, where are you watching from? Because kindness, when chosen freely, always finds its way back.